Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up. Matt LaFleur's name is prevalent right now in the football world. Packers season, of course, comes to an end on Saturday, losing in the wild card round for the second year in a row, the 7 seed for the third year in a row, just kind of squeaking into the playoffs the last 3 years, but playoff berths nonetheless. And now the big question is, what does Green Bay do? What do they do with their head coach, Matt LaFleur? And I saw Adam Schefter of ESPN reporting earlier on Monday that the Packers will try to work on an extension with Matt LaFleur to keep him around. I know there's a lot of fans that will be happy with that. There's equally as many fans that are upset and pissed off about it. We can go many ways with this video. Like, we could even start just with like a little pros and cons before we dive into the meat and potatoes, and maybe that's how we'll start it. I've sort of canvassed the scene with other content creators on social media and then just talking to a bunch of my buddies who are Packers fans. I would actually say I do believe at this point, like whether right or wrong, it leans towards people wanting Green Bay to let Matt LaFleur go and bring in a new head coach. I don't think it's as easy as doing that within the snap of a finger if you're Ed Policy, the team president and CEO. When you look at Matt LaFleur, he has, and again, this can kind of be viewed as a pros and cons just for the first few minutes, because then we're going to really dive into the crux of this. Matt LaFleur has established a very high floor in Green Bay. A high floor to the point where you feel like the playoffs are almost not a guarantee, but you view the season going into it every September as, well, the Packers should be a playoff team at minimum. And I think to do that, going from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love and not having any major setbacks or major hiccups, Matt LaFleur deserves a ton of credit for that, because Jordan Love just completed his third year as the starter in Green Bay, and the Packers have gone to the playoffs each and every one of those first 3 years, with J. Love taking over for the future first ballot Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers. So there's a very high floor that's been established with Matt LaFleur as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. If you keep him around, and again, Ed Policy has said he does not want a lame duck coaching situation, which is why this topic is sort of running hot and heavy, because Matt LaFleur, if nothing is done in his contract, would enter the final year of his deal next season. And so it's kind of there's a fork in the road, and Green Bay's got to choose. They got to choose a path. Are they going to go left and give him an extension? Or are they going to go right and part ways and bring in someone new as the new voice and a new head coach for the Packers? You keep Matt LaFleur around, you know you have a high floor. You keep Matt LaFleur around, you know there's familiarity with everything, inside that building, outside that building, with the team, with the front office, with someone like Ed Policy, the roster, the community, Green Bay, all that good stuff. He'd be entering year 8. Like, there's plenty of familiarity at this point. You listen to the players who spoke at their lockers on Monday, and almost to a man, every single one, when they were asked about Matt LaFleur, spoke glowingly of the head coach, and most of them used their voices as a way to support the idea of, no, Matt LaFleur needs to be our head coach. We've won plenty with him as our head coach. I think Javon Bullard was one who had said, I've been here, 2 years now, 3 years, and we win, and so you want Matt LaFleur back. And Jordan Love, right after the game on Saturday, voiced his support for Matt LaFleur. Now, part of that is, like, what do you expect the players to say? Like, do you really think anyone, like Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, whoever, do you think any player is going to stand at their locker on Monday and say, get rid of him? Like, nope, we're done. Like, that's not going to happen. But they also don't have to go so far out of their way to say, we need him, he should be our head coach, we can get this done with Matt LaFleur. And most of them chose to go that route. Another thing, it kind of goes hand in hand with the high floor. He's a good coach. Like, I think in some pockets this has stretched out to a great embellishment and a great exaggeration, to many thinking like, oh, Matt LaFleur, this is god-awful, it's horrific, he sucks as a head coach. Like, that's just not the case. And I think one thing we can look at as an immediate reflection of that is this idea that if the Packers were to move on from Matt LaFleur, it is almost a certainty that, assuming he wants to continue coaching, he would be plucked up by another team for a head coaching job in the snap of a finger. Like, he would immediately become the best name on the market ahead of Stefanski, ahead of Harbaugh. But the problem for the Packers, as we kind of get to the cons, is, and we'll finish up with another pro, a lot of people always bring up his record, 76-40-1, 76-40-1, 76-40-1. He wins. He wins in the regular season. He wins in the regular season flat out. You can't deny it. Where you kind of turn the page and look on the other side of the coin is you see that in the last few years it hasn't been as pretty. It's 76-40-1 overall, right? But including the playoffs, in the last few years, I believe it's 38-33-1 or something right around there, which is not as glowing. It's 3-6 overall in the playoffs. And when you look at those 6 losses suffered with Matt LaFleur as the head coach, in 3 of them, so half of them, the Packers held leads and had the ball in the fourth quarter. Saturday was one of those examples. In the 3 others, they were just dusted. Trailed 27-0 at halftime in the NFC Championship against San Francisco a few years ago, 28-10 in the second half of another, and 16-3 last year, entering the fourth quarter against Philadelphia. And so it's either been, you get the doors blown off, or it's gut-wrenching, heartbreaking fashion where you're leading, you have the ball in the fourth quarter, and you find a way to cough it up and fall in defeat. Another one of the cons, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciative of all the support. I don't think there's anyone that can make a strong case that Matt LaFleur has been, top tier when it comes to clock management and game management. And those two can intertwine at times and can also be separated. How many games have we seen in big spots and big moments where the Packers build a lead, 2 possessions or more? And then it almost becomes a clock game, and oftentimes it's just far too early for it to become a clock game. Is that exactly what happened Saturday? No. I think Matt LaFleur tried to run it in the second half and tried to play the clock game a little, but the offensive line was so putrid in those final 2 quarters for Green Bay that nothing seemed to work on offense. But we have seen clock management issues that did pop up in that game were the usage of the timeouts in the second half. You burned one because the offense just didn't get the play in time, didn't get set in time, and then coming out of that timeout, you have a delay of game. That, to me, is a reflection on coaching. Chicago semi-hurries up to the line after a completed pass to around midfield in the second half, and your defense gets caught trying to substitute, and you have to burn another timeout. To me, that's miscommunication. That's coaching. And then there were questions. The last time out they did have on that final drive, they used it after a short pass to Romeo Doubs with 44 seconds left when everyone was kind of congregated near where the new line of scrimmage was going to be set. And the thought was you could either go up there and spike it and save that last time out so you could still utilize the middle of the field to a heavy degree, or you get up there and just call another quick play. Because it wasn't like some 18-yard pass to the outside, to the boundary, and wide receiver A, B, and C are one's in the end zone, one's right at the line of scrimmage, one's 15 yards downfield, and you're going to be scattering. Everyone was kind of congregated right around that line, but they still used that timeout. And that one might be a little more nitpicky, but I don't believe anyone can sit here and say 7 years in that Matt LaFleur is really, really excelling, and he's damn good when it comes to clock management and game management. More times than not, I would say, when the Packers lose games, there's things you can circle that are head-scratching when it comes to usage of timeouts, game management, and clock management. There are plenty of examples, and I just gave you a couple in the game on Saturday. It's like Green Bay's great at building leads, and then everything can go to hell with either conservative play calling or the Packers just creating chaos when it's unnecessary, and they start shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. I will note, too, as one of the cons, if you will, a lot of these players at their lockers on Monday talking, voicing their support for Matt LaFleur. You had Quay Walker come out after the game on Saturday with a pretty jarring and damning statement talking about how the Packers as a whole, as a franchise, he noted that it's during his time as a Packer and even before he got to Green Bay, the inability to finish games, finish these big games. Whether it's needing to come from behind or one like Saturday where you build a substantial lead and then you just piss down your leg and lose. And Javon Bullard said Saturday right after the game that it's on Green Bay. He said, we just can't finish. We didn't finish. We didn't finish another game. He said, we had the lead, a substantial one. Last time in Chicago, couldn't hold the lead. Same thing this time around. Same thing that happened in Cleveland this year against a horrific Browns team. 2-possession lead, fourth quarter. Green Bay just They start playing the clock game too early. The play calling gets really conservative. And then when you do let Love throw it, he throws a pick to Grant Delpit. Browns take it back to the 2. Like, there's just so many examples you can circle where it's the clock management and the game management is just not where it needs to be in this team. In these big spots, the inability to finish, a lot of it to me ties back to having a coach that oftentimes tries to get, it's not too cute. It's not that he's trying to get too cute ever, I don't think. It's that he starts peering at the clock a little bit too early instead of just saying, let's just go for the damn jugular. Like, let's just go for the kill shot here. And that, to me, is a problem. And my last thing I would note, too, is, like, the hesitation with staff changes. Like, sometimes it sucks. But sometimes when you hire buddies or people you're overly familiar with, it's harder to let them go when it's clear that they should be let go. Like, if there was ever a time for an in-season firing to happen, which is always tricky to navigate, Maurice Drayton, the special teams coach for Green Bay, in what was his final year, it was miserable, start to finish. And LaFleur was asked during the season on a couple of occasions about that situation and was steadfast in the idea of, no, it's Maurice Drayton, business as usual, blah, blah, blah. How did that season end for Green Bay? Well, it ended in a defensive battle in the playoffs on your home field against San Francisco with the Niners blocking a punt for a touchdown and beating you, I think it was 13-10 at Lambeau Field. Blocking a punt in the fourth quarter for a touchdown. Special teams reared its ugly head yet again. And then the Joe Barry debacle. Joe Barry, I'm sure he's a great guy. All his press conferences he had seemed like a really good dude. Was not fit to be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. And the writing was on the wall 2 years in. He should have never got that last year as the defensive coordinator for Green Bay. But LaFleur let him stick around for that extra year. It was the same product everyone had seen the first couple of times around. But that inability to just cut ties when it needs to happen is something that it doesn't look good. Now, we're going to get into a lot of other points here, or a few, I should say. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Optics, how things can look if you give them an extension, if you don't. Other names that have been brought up. Like, I'll start with this, too. There's a contingent out there that's like, get rid of LaFleur, bring in Harbaugh. Bring in John Harbaugh. Get rid of LaFleur, bring in Harbaugh. Baltimore got rid of him. Oh, my God, why did the Ravens get rid of John Harbaugh after 18 years? Blah, 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 blah. Harbaugh's a really, really damn good coach. It's a pass for me. And I'll tell you why John Harbaugh is a pass for me. You bring in John Harbaugh, it gives you a high floor instantly. You still have the credibility, and you have an instant high floor. It's not, this could really go poorly or really go in the opposite direction in a really good fashion. You have a high floor. But with Matt LaFleur, you already have that. The question with Harbaugh is he getting you over the top in Green Bay? And if you look at why Baltimore let him go, a lot of it came down to conservative play calling in big spots and blowing leads in the second half. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? Harbaugh teams have blown 18 double-digit second-half leads in his tenure, the most by any coach since at least 1991. What are some of the problems or the gripes people have with Matt LaFleur? Not being able to finish games, building leads, and then just implosions, collapsing, and getting conservative when you need to really try to stomp out an opponent. Those were two of the gripes that Baltimore fans, and I'm sure that front office and the rest of the brain trust, had with John Harbaugh. I look at Harbaugh and I say he would be a perfect fit for somewhere like the New York Giants. Here's why. Again, he's already established. He's a good coach. He's a really good coach. But the Giants need stability. The Giants funnel in coaches left and right. The Giants have been a dumpster fire. They've been a mess for years and years and years and years. Now you look around, you're like, hey, there's a lot of pieces to like on that defense, especially with the defensive front. They might have got it with the young quarterback in Jackson Dart, Cam Scatabo at running back. And, you hope Malik Neighbors comes back well from the torn ACL because he is a superstar in the making at wide receiver. Like, there's a lot of things appealing about that New York Giants job. But they need a high floor hire. That's Harbaugh. But that's already what Green Bay has in Matt LaFleur. You already know with Matt LaFleur, if you bring him back, it should be playoffs at a minimum. The problem is, he's good. Is he great? Can he get you over the top? And in 7 years, we haven't seen that. You've been close to a Super Bowl appearance, but you haven't gotten there. And so I look at Harbaugh, and I'm just saying you're funneling out one similar coach for another. I know Harbaugh has a Super Bowl on his resume back in, was that like 2012, 2013 with Flacco? And so Harbaugh has gotten to the mountaintop. But in recent years with Baltimore, the issues are a lot of the same ones that people are bringing up with Matt LaFleur. And so I think he needs to go somewhere. Like, I'm a New York Knicks fan, a huge New York Knicks fan. And for years it was one incompetent coach after another, after another, after another. Then they brought in Tom Thibodeau. And it was like, Tom Thibodeau is a really good NBA coach. He's never gotten to the mountaintop as a head coach, but he brings you stability and he brings you a raised floor. I keep using that phrase, but I promise it has to keep being brought up. And Tom Thibodeau did exactly what he did at every other pit stop, Chicago, Minnesota, and then New York. He took an incompetent franchise and brought them stability and brought them playoff appearances. And you knew kind of each and every year as things got a little better and a little better that it would eventually reach the ceiling and it would cap out. And there were a lot of Knicks fans when they got rid of Tom Thibodeau after the Knicks got to the ECF, the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago, were like, oh my gosh, why are you getting rid of Tom Thibodeau? Because it was clear that it had reached its point, the highest point it was going to get to, just like it had at every other stop. Tom Thibodeau's a damn good coach, but he shortens rotations, especially in the playoffs. Starters play heavy minutes. His teams gas out in the postseason. But he got New York back on really solid ground. Harbaugh can do that for the Giants. The Packers aren't in that situation where it's like, we need to bring someone who can get us back on solid ground. It's, can Matt LaFleur get you over the top, or do we need to look elsewhere for someone who can? And that's why I pass on Harbaugh while recognizing he is a really good coach. Because if you pass on Matt LaFleur, this cannot turn into a Steve Mariucci in San Francisco situation. Do you remember? Go look at the Steve Mariucci-led San Francisco 49ers teams. He had a couple of years, maybe it was a few, with Steve Young, and then I think it was Jeff Garcia. But Steve Mariucci won a ton of games. Consistent playoff appearances with San Francisco, like year after year. There were a couple of hiccup years, but in large part it was winning a lot of games, getting to the playoffs, but could never get over that hump. And when San Francisco realized, like, it's good, but it's not great. It's not going to bring us a championship. They parted ways with Mariucci. But the problem for San Francisco was they parted ways with Mariucci, and then it became a mess. It was one coach for a couple of years, and another, then another, then another. And San Francisco, they weren't living in purgatory for a while. They were living like they were in hell. Like, it was one bad team after another, after another, after another. If you're Green Bay and you part ways with Matt LaFleur, you have to get it right. And while someone like Harbaugh would bring you, like, the relief of knowing it's never going to completely bottom out, again, the issues he had in Baltimore are some of the ones we're looking at that Green Bay has had with Matt LaFleur. And so if you give him the extension, the big question is are they going to get to the mountaintop? Are they even going to get a Super Bowl appearance? I look around and I say, what gives us any optimism? And I know this Packers team dealt with a lot of injuries, and there's a lot of people who are going to say, man, if they had Tucker Kraft and Michael Parsons, Devontae Wyatt, and yada, 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 it would have been different this year. And maybe it would have, but we'll never know. So you can't really crutch onto that and grab onto that. I look and I say it has been 7 years. If they give Matt LaFleur an extension, can I sit here and honestly look into this camera and tell you guys and girls, and can you comment, or, when people are out and about and talking about the Packers, or when you're talking with your friends and family about Green Bay and the direction they're heading, like, if Matt LaFleur gives an extension, I can't look into this camera and tell you with complete conviction, yes, in year 8, start now in year 8, they'll get over the hump. Like, they're going to figure it out. I hope they do. But when you're an NFL franchise, you can't live on hope. You can't live on a whim and a prayer. Like, you have to have more conviction. You have to have more confidence that it's going to get done. And in 7 years, it's been really good with Matt LaFleur. In 6 out of the 7, you've been to the playoffs. So many teams would sign up for that. And that's where this whole idea of, like, Packers fans having a polluted mind in terms of they're spoiled, but they don't even realize it. And I get that people can have that take. But with where Green Bay's at right now, I hope that they can get to the mountaintop of Matt LaFleur's 6th round, because he is a damn good coach, and they should make the playoffs next year if he's back. But I can't sit here and tell you like, oh, it's going to change. Like now, year 8 is when it's going to start to click because it's already been 7 years. And it's like, how much more time do you need? And I know a lot of teams would sign up for the 7 seed and get into the playoffs 3 years in a row, and it's fine, and I get that. It's just not what the standard has been in Green Bay. And so if they give LaFleur an extension, and let's say it's like a 2-year extension on top of what he has, which is 1 year left on his deal, I'm not going to be in an uproar. I'm not going to be mad about it because, again, he's a good coach. He has proven as much, and then some, to a certain degree. But if this is some 4-year extension, and I'm not even going to say the money because I'm not going to live in someone else's pockets, but if it is a 4-year extension that puts him, like among the highest paid coaches in the NFL, I believe the optics of that look bad. And if you're the Packers, can you live in a world where you're constantly worried about optics? No. You can't. You can't operate this business that way. But if this is a 4-year extension and he's getting rewarded as like one of the highest paid coaches, you're rewarding a coach for how this looked at the end, for ending the game on a 5-game losing streak, losing to your division rival in the playoffs where you held a 21-3 lead at halftime and a 21-6 lead entering the fourth quarter. And here you go. Here's a massive thank you, big extension, one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL for how this season just ended. And that to me would be, for a lot of fans, and rightfully so, it'd be a tough pill to swallow. I know a lot of people will also bring up, we're covering a lot of angles here, and please subscribe if you haven't already. It takes 3 seconds to do so. Cost you nothing, helps me immensely as I build up the channel. There's a lot of people, and a couple of my buddies have said, there isn't a better candidate out there. Like, you have to keep LaFleur. Give him the extension, make him happy. I don't care if it's 3 or 4 years, whatever. Give him the extension because there isn't a better candidate in this cycle. I have never, ever, ever, with any of my teams, with sports and my thought process towards it in general, I've never been cut from the cloth where I've thought, well, if there isn't a better candidate that's clear and concise, don't dump your guy. Because to me, I loathe that philosophy because you're accepting either average or slightly above average. You're accepting that word I brought up earlier. You're accepting living in purgatory, where it's like you're so worried about letting go of something that's good to try to go for something that's great that you're just going to be satisfied with living in a pretty comfortable, cushiony spot where, again, it's like Matt LaFleur is a good coach. We know that. You're pretty much playoffs every year are the standard, and then you cross your fingers and hope to the high heavens that Green Bay can figure it out. But I've never, ever lived in the mindset of, well, just hang on to him because we don't know if there's anyone better out there. I can't do that. And if you operate that way, it's completely fine. This is why we can have different opinions, but we can talk about them, discuss them, and still get along and shake hands afterwards. I have never been of that mindset where I'm so scared of what could be next that let's just clutch on to something that's good, but if we don't win, we don't win the whole thing, so be it. I can't live in that world. I don't. And so if you're Ed Policy, you're asking, could Kevin Stefanski take you over the top? And a lot of people right away will say, no, God, no. It's like he was in a pretty bad situation in Cleveland, and I think in 5 or 6 years as the head coach, took the Browns to the playoffs twice, won a playoff game. What killed Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland was the Deshaun Watson trade. Horrific. Never worked out. All that guaranteed money up front. Kevin Stefanski, pretty good coach. And you have to ask, are his clock management, game management, are those traits of his better, superior to what Matt LaFleur has? If you get rid of LaFleur, can Kevin Stefanski get you over the top? Could you go a different direction and try to pull a Marcus Freeman away from Notre Dame, who's already said, hey, I'm sticking with Notre Dame, but now there's whispers like, yeah, a lot of people still think he'd entertain an NFL gig, even maybe this cycle, if it's a really, can't miss perfect opportunity. Well, I'm telling you, if Green Bay were to not work something out with Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers, with everything they already have in place, become the top available job. And so could you lure away a Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame? And I'm just spitballing on a couple of ideas there. I don't have, a list in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of it have to be this, or this. I also know if you let go of Matt LaFleur, and this goes to show that he is a good head coach and a damn good one, he immediately becomes the top name, ahead of Harbaugh, ahead of Stefanski, for most teams, right? Doesn't mean Stefanski wouldn't be a better fit in Green Bay, and that the shortcomings of LaFleur would be things that Stefanski could enhance for the Packers. But LaFleur would instantly become, to me, and I think most, the best name available. And can you say that about all head coaches who are like, no, not even close. You know what? You know a really interesting name, and I'll say it. It's just like I don't want to deliver a ricochet shot because I just typically don't like doing that. But like the Philadelphia Eagles just lost to the a depleted San Francisco 49ers team, and that kind of ties into the LaFleur thing too. Like Kyle Shanahan just won a playoff game without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa, got to the playoffs, played pretty much the whole season without Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. George Kittle exited that game early with a horrific Achilles injury. Brock Purdy missed a ton of games this year. Brandon Ayuk, their top wide receiver from a year ago or 2 years ago, didn't even take a single snap this year. Like Trent Williams missed, I think, the final 2 games. 3 of San Francisco's best 5 players by far, Kittle, Warner, Bosa, gone. Kittle in the playoff game, Warner and Bosa, by far your best 2 defensive players, gone for most of the season. Kittle gone early in the playoff game. Kyle Shanahan found a way to win a game on the road. And you look around because people will use that excuse like, oh, how can you blame LaFleur? How can you blame Love and the Packers? They had so many injuries. San Francisco did. San Francisco had a ton of injuries to key players. I would say 3 of their 5 best on the roster found a way to win a playoff game on the road. But anyways, Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl last year. The vibes were super weird this year. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith at times, the Jalen Hurts dynamic, all of it just super weird. If Philadelphia were to say, man, we just don't think this is going to work with Nick Sirianni, and they let him go, are there teams that are running to get an interview lined up for Nick Sirianni? A couple, sure. I not to the degree of Matt LaFleur. And again, that's the point I'm trying to make. Matt LaFleur is a damn good head coach. If something didn't get worked out with the Packers, he would immediately become the premier candidate in this cycle. And so that's why I don't like some of the embellishing that's been done where people are like, oh, you have to get rid of him. He's terrible. He's an awful head coach. He is not. I just think that Philadelphia part's interesting, but I'm not going to dive too much further. I'm not going to dive any further into that. The problem you have with LaFleur, we'll finish up here. Is he good but not great? Thus, leading you to wonder, will he never be able to lead this organization, this franchise to the promised land? In 7 years, have the Packers seen enough to come to a conclusion where they know it's good, but it probably won't ever be great? That's one of the big questions. Green Bay, I said this to a couple buddies earlier. Green Bay could go 14-3. I'm not saying they're going to, and they probably won't, right? It's a what if kind of thing. It's not even a what if. It's just my fears becoming reality. Green Bay could go 14-3 next year, folks. Packers could go 14-3, get the number 1 seed, get the bye. Whenever that first playoff game comes around, if they do make the postseason, I am now resided to living in a headspace where honest to goodness, I will just believe they're going to find a way to blow this. I don't care who the opponent is. I don't care if it's on the road. I don't care if it's at Lambeau Field. I don't care what the weather is. I don't care if it's wild card weekend or they got a bye and it's in the divisional round. I will be resided to thinking this Packers team will find a way to screw this up and lose. And I don't think I'm the only one who has that thought going forward. Big spots, big games, big moments. We have seen it again and again and again and again the last few years. And so that's what my thought process will be entering the postseason next year. They could go 17-0 and get the 1 seed and blow out every team in the regular season by 30+. That first playoff game rolls around. In my heart, I will want to believe they're going to win. They're going to figure it out. This is the year. Everything looks so good. How could they possibly mess it up? My head will be telling me, my brain will be telling me, they're going to find a way to choke this away. And that's not what the standard has been in Green Bay. I'll finish with this. I don't mind what Matt LaFleur said in much of his season-ending presser on Sunday. A lot of it was coach speak, but what do you want the guy to say, right? One thing I question is when he shut down any idea of these types of losses, build a big lead, and then you just collapse. I wrote an article where I said, why can't the Packers lose in a normal fashion? And in one of my paragraphs, I put it's like they invite the opponent in, they open the door, they give them the combination to the safe, and they let them run out with all the money and all the jewelry, and they're just like, hey, thanks for stopping by. Like there's just no resistance because the Packers are soiling themselves when they build these big leads in big games. When it should be, hey, how do we deliver a knockout punch? Let's go deliver a knockout punch. And that just hasn't been how things have operated. And so when Matt LaFleur on Sunday shut down these types of losses being a culture problem, he can't come out and say, yeah, there's a culture problem. But I hope deep inside there is a reflection point with this entire staff, not just Matt LaFleur, everyone involved, where they do look around and question what is the culture right now of the Green Bay Packers? Because I think if you took a pulse and you had a bunch of people chug truth serum and they were asked, what do you think the current kind of culture, setting, all that stuff, if you had to do like, how would you caption Green Bay right now, the Packers? A lot of people would view this version of the Packers and this culture as it's pretty damn good and it's pretty damn consistent in a good way. But every year, they'll end up vomiting all over themselves in a big game in a big moment. That, to me, is the viewpoint of this culture, and that has to change. Can LaFleur change it? Maybe. It's been 7 years already. I can't sit here and look into the camera and tell you with conviction it's going to be better in year 8. They just got to give them the extension. It's going to be better. I can't. Because once again, they had it in the palm of their hands on Saturday and found a way to let it go through their grasp. So I don't know. If he gets the extension, I'm not going to be mad. I'll welcome it. But if it's a 4-year, one of the highest paid guys in the NFL now, the optics of that look truly, truly bad. Let me know what you guys and gals think. I'm always, always appreciative of all the support. It is Mitch M on YouTube. Click the subscribe button. Costs you nothing. Helps me immensely as I build up the channel. We'll see you later this week.